I'm Lisa Stone. Thank you for joining us for this edition of Parenting Aces. Welcome to the Parenting Aces podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Stone, fresh off my trip to New York for the WTCA Conference and the U.S. Open. I hope you guys have enjoyed all the coverage on ParentingAces.com and the video interviews posted on our YouTube channel, which, by the way, I'm still working to try and clean up the audio there. So if you have any suggestions, please reach out to me and let me know how best to do that. But getting back to this week's podcast, while at the WTCA conference, I had the opportunity to meet Furqan Iqbal and his partner, Doug Kruger, with Tennis Locker. And I had been exchanging emails with both gentlemen over the past several months, exchanging Facebook messages with them as well, and trying to figure out a time where I could get them on the podcast for y'all. Tennis Locker is a new app. It is a management app that can be used by academies, by individual coaches, by parents and players to take an overall look at player development, plot out a plan, and document progression throughout that plan. It is really, really incredible. I had an opportunity to see Furqan's presentation at the WTCA conference and really am just so impressed. I feel like he has incorporated all of the elements that I've been asking for and complaining about in coaching over the last several years. So I encourage all of you to take a look at Tennis Locker. If you have a chance to talk to your child's coach about it, please do so. And if you are a coach, I hope you'll consider adding this to your repertory of offerings to your players and to your tennis families. It really is worthwhile. So that said, I hope you enjoy my interview with Furqan. I will be quiet now and let you hear more about Tennis Locker. I'm with Furqan Iqbal of Tennis Locker, and we are sitting in the lounge at the Marriott in Manhattan after having spent the last 2 days in amazing meetings as part of the WTCA conference here in New York that is being held in conjunction with the U.S. Open. And I'm not sure when this is going to air, Furqan, but we're just going to talk as if it's airing tomorrow, and whatever is after that. So
awesome.
It's really nice to meet you in person.
Very
finally.
nice to meet you as well. Thank you for having me, though. I appreciate it. It's been we've been emailing for a few weeks now, so this is great to see you in person and then be a part of your audience. Yeah.
And for me to get to actually see Tennis Locker demonstrated and learn a little bit more about it through your presentation at the conference, and then you guys had a booth this week. It's Friday, right? I'm so turned around. To actually get to see it, being demonstrated was really cool. So I like to start by asking you, how did you get involved in tennis? What's your story?
Sure. So I always had loved tennis. My dad loved tennis. I remember watching tennis with him. I'm originally from Pakistan. I came here when I was 11. And my father, he passed away on the fourth day that we moved here, and
wow,
it was but I remember watching tennis with him, and back then McEnroe and Hingis and Martina and such, and I always wanted to play tennis, but given the circumstances, I didn't get a chance to. And then when I had my my son, and we had introduced him to karate when he was 4 years old, and he had a pretty good run there, and he was in one of the competitions, and there was a whole panel, and everybody got a trophy at the end, and there were 3 medals that were given, and he didn't receive one of the medals, even though he was the one who presented, he was the one who demonstrated his club at the competition. And he came up to me and asked me at 4.5, why didn't he get a medal? And I reached up to, I talked to his coach, and then he said that there's unfortunately a lot of politics within the karate world and such, and didn't have an answer for him. So I decided to kind of like get him into an individual sport, merit-based sport where he didn't have to worry about being on a team, and as long as he was working hard and he was able to get to where he wanted to on his own merit. So we introduced him to tennis about 4.5 years ago. 4.5 years old. That was 10 years ago. He's almost 15. And that's how we started in tennis. We were very lucky to start off at a club called T-Bar M Racket Club in Dallas, Texas. And we've been there ever since. We've been there for 10 years. So that's how our tennis journey started with my son.
So T-Bar M has been around a long time. So my listeners from Texas, y'all know how great a place that is, and for the rest of you, just trust me, it's
a great place. Yeah,
it's a great place.
Yeah, and the owner, Glenn Arcatelli, he's done amazing work with the club. Since he's had it, we've been there for 10 years. People we've known like our entire tennis community, from that club. So amazing coaches, amazing facility, amazing management, and just been very blessed to be there from the beginning. A lot of people unfortunately have to switch clubs and find the right coach, and we've just been so lucky to be there. And progressively as he's grown in his tennis, they've always been able to accommodate from a coaching perspective to where he should be next. So,
and I mean, they can coach up to the professional level.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Right? I mean, Mitchell Kruger is from T-Bar. Dane Webb also is an alumni of T-Bar M. So yeah, we're very lucky to be there.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so, what is your job now? What do you do?
Sure. So I've been in IT for over close to 22 years now, and as soon as we started working, with tennis with Abrar, and as he started playing into sectional and then going into national tournaments, I had to start missing a couple of his tournaments because I only had 3 to 4 weeks of PTO and corporate. And as I moved up the corporate ladder and getting into management, I was managing a lot of teams, and being in IT, I had teams in different time zones and a lot of responsibilities, usually over the weekend when we would release new products and new updates to our products. So I started missing a couple of his tournaments, and that didn't sit well with me. I wanted to be there to watch him as he was progressing up, and just an opportunity came around. It was a blessing in disguise where I moved to this new company, and I was only there for 6-7 months, and they decided to merge, outsource their IT out to a consulting firm, and they had to let go of a number of different people. So I was actually part of the downsizing, because my tenure was really short there for 6 months. So I looked for a job after that, and for one reason or another, it didn't work out. And I was like, you know what, I am going to take a month off and see where I want to go next. And then I started a company called Sports Analytics, which is the parent company of Tennis Locker, and with an emphasis of disrupting the junior industry with providing analytics at a junior level and data-driven player development.
Very cool. Sorry for the sirens in the background, but like I said, we're in New York City, so it just comes with the territory. So one of the things that excites me so much about what you're doing with Tennis Locker, and you can talk about the other stuff that Sports Analytics is doing as well, but for Parenting Aces purposes, Tennis Locker is what it's all about. And the thing that really caught my attention was, my listeners know, my readers know, for years I have been talking about the fact that coaches need to give us parents hard data, hard information, so that we know what's going on with our kids' development. Right. We want to see, even though they may not be winning matches, does the coach feel like they're on the right path? Are they doing the right things and all of that? And so lo and behold, a tennis parent comes along who also understands how to engineer
leverage
software.
Mobile. So that's a very good question. I mean, my background is product design, development. That's what I've been doing for the last 15 plus years, and I basically design products around technology. And as you mentioned, this is it's unfortunately one of the cultures within the tennis industry for some reason, is that you as parents are in some ways, not even say the word sidelined, but they are
we have a bad rap.
We have a bad rap.
We just have a bad rap. That's just the way it is.
And what I had been looking for a very long time as Abrar progressed through sectionals and national level tournaments was, I need to know how, not just from his tournament results, what he is doing on a day-to-day, the process, right? How is he improving as an athlete? What about his fitness and his mental and this and that? And there's definitely programs, for it, but there was really not a single resource to be able to look at a 360 view of your child's progress as an athlete, in the sport of tennis. So I had been asking for stuff, and with coaches, even though they have the best care for your kids, it's just not their culture. There hasn't been a resource to be able to provide them. There's been a lot of companies who've decided to create software, but unfortunately a lot of them were designed by coaches who thought that yes, this should be a great, there should be something like this in the market. There's a gap here that could be filled, and there've been a lot of efforts there. It's just that the product development side hadn't been there, and how to bring all of that together. So I took that as a challenge, and I was doing this stuff for my son on other data visualization tools like Excel and some of the other stuff where I would actually show him stuff, and then with my leaving corporate and looking to do something, I was like, okay, this is something that I could possibly, what I've been doing for my son, I could probably bring this out to a mobile platform, right? So that's how it all started, and I started designing the app, and then the MVP, which is a minimum viable product, was only supposed to have attendance and evaluations, and now this has grown into an entire platform. We launched last year at the WTCA, at the TIA conference here in New York at the Open, and today marks our 1-year anniversary, and we're absolutely excited to share that we now have just over 11,000 users on the app. We are coming up to 100 academies. We have 97 academies. We're going international at the end of September. So there's a lot of exciting stuff that's coming on board. We have some, the biggest part that for us to see the academies that are onboarded with us, academies like John McEnroe Tennis Academy, Everett Tennis Academy, Emilio Sanchez ASC, because in Naples, Midtown, Lifetime, those academies that have a huge reputation, with a lot of credit, on court and off court, and to have them embrace, what this player development platform has just been, extremely satisfying for us to be able to say that yes, we're on the right path of where we're trying to go. So yeah. Yeah,
it's amazing. It's funny because I've interviewed a ton of coaches over the years, and coach after coach after coach will talk about the fact that we need to ignore wins and losses. We need to ignore results during the developmental years. But yet, what else do we as parents have to judge how our kids doing?
Exactly. And then some of the coaches are guilty of that's what I have heard as well. But then when it comes time for a quarterly meeting or a 6-month plan and goals and such, the only non-anecdotal stuff that data that they have is the wins and losses and the participation in tournaments, and that's what was frustrating for me, to be able to kind of gauge where his progress was in terms of him being an athlete, because as in the development stages of a player and athlete, wins and losses, everyone's heard the stories of these pros who were really not as good in their junior years, but they progressed, they bloomed later. So it's unfortunate, but it's just a reality that tennis has suffered from a lack of technological infusion in that sense, and there's been attempts of it, but the frustrations of as your audience and you yourself as a parent, a tennis parent, those frustrations in a way kind of drove me to build Tennis Locker from scratch, and to include a holistic approach outside of just that. So now it's really exciting to be able to see. It was an education for coaches. We built the app. It's the one thing that we hear every single time when we do a demo and we've done hundreds of demos, is an extremely user friendly. It's it's an app that an older coach can use. It doesn't have to be young coaches that are millennial coaches. It's made it so easy, friendly. The user experience, the UI design has just been that's the biggest compliment that we get for the app. And for the most part, a lot of these older coaches who have been there with that, experienced coaches that have been there, they actually find it very useful because it helps them communicate with the parents, and it's just a tap. It's not something new that they have to learn. It's based on their iOS platform, on the Android platform. It's just literally a tap-based app. So it's like, we like to call it one tap, one app kind of technology that we've kind of built. So it's just those. We've gotten feedback from parents, right? It's not just the coaches. So the app is available free for the parents and the players of the academies that are using Tennis Locker. So the engagement from the parents' perspective has just been extremely well received, because if their child is at practice and they get an evaluation score, they get a push notification letting them know that, hey, they did this today. It's more than just when you pick up your child from practice, they get in the car and you ask them, how was practice, and it was good, or it was great. And that's the extent of the feedback that we used to get, unless you're actually one of those helicopter parents who's on the fence.
I'm raising my hand right now.
I'm pure guilty of that, and I think you need one of the parents to be in that in that role in order for. So if you're not, that's the feedback now is where they feel engaged, they see the progress. We have I would say probably about 50 plus graphs and charts that are real-time data visualization tools that help parents see the progress, that help trainers, fitness instructors, coaches see patterns in development in their fitness. It can be used to identify early on injuries that may be coming up for your player. So a variety that you can see as a fitness coach, you can see a single one-stop leaderboard kind of a tool that we built in, a feature that we built in that shows them how they're doing on their speed and agility, how they're doing on their endurance, how they're doing on their core, right? So based off of that, they can train, they can create a program for them based on those leaderboards. So if their kid is running a mile under 6 minutes consistently, but he's struggling with his speed and agility and 10-yard dashes or those kind of things, then the trainer can focus with that player on those specific needs that there are. And that's the anecdotally, you don't remember a week ago who you played, who you didn't play, and what you did and such. And now there is a chronological timeline with with data-driven player development that shows you everything from their time spent on court, the evaluations, the player evaluations, fitness testing, practice match results, tournament analytics, goals. We have player calendars to map out how much time they're spending. We are just launching video analysis to be able to incorporate video analysis within the app, so you have stroke analysis videos. So there's a variety of different ways coaches and academies can help. The idea here is not to take the coach's job. That's not what they're doing. It's just to help them identify patterns and such. And the expectation now has changed, I think, from parents to where there's an expectation. Millennial parents specifically, or even are now expecting an ROI. Everybody. There's an app for everything, and when millennial parents are spending on their Gen Z athletes, their players, they expect an ROI in terms of their emotional commitment, their financial commitment, and what are they getting? The experience that they're getting. It's a really good tool also for clubs and academies to kind of differentiate themselves from some of the other programs that are out there, and also it's a really good retention tool as well. When you go and tour a club and they see Tennis Locker as being one of the ways that you're provided feedback as they're exploring different sports for their children, and they get to see the experience in tennis, that this is the kind of feedback that they're getting as opposed to going into another sport. We've heard from our academies that they're using Tennis Locker as one of the features that they would highlight as part of the tour of the academy, as part of the tour of the club. So we provide academies with extensive data visualization in terms of their participation rates, their gender breakdowns, by group, by boys, girls, age levels. So it's all real time. And that level of information has never been there. People are still using, pen and paper in the industry. And I've been very surprised at the fact that tennis industry is one of the very late adopters of technology. There's still people using court sheets.
Right.
And it's like
they're paper draws at tournaments,
right?
Yeah.
And that's been, and the fact that we can bring all of that and give you the insights that you need in order to understand your player better, in order to coach them better, in order to help optimize their training program and engage with the parents and get all, they've always talked about, this is a team, as a parent, as a player, as a coach. And I think Tennis Locker provides that, it really sets that statement to be true, that now you can definitely be a team and everybody's on the same page and it's not anecdotal. So
when you were coming up with the features
Sure.
to include, you're not a tennis player.
I'm not a tennis player.
How did you figure out what needed to be included in the whole platform?
Yeah, so some of the, as a parent, as a helicopter parent, I'm a recovering helicopter parent.
I like that.
And
I may have to steal that term.
And I was very involved in a sense. I charted every single match. I explored a number of different apps and at the end of the match, he would get to see how many his match stats and stuff. So I would do that even for his practice matches. Without sounding in terms of trying to toot my horn, but I have always had, in terms of my product development background, a very extreme eye for detail in terms of what was needed. So how do we make the user experience better? So as a parent, I wanted to know, of course, his fitness, of course, is a huge part as he, started playing in, national and high-level tournaments. Fitness was, of course, one aspect of it. They do everybody plays practice. Everybody plays practice matches. Everybody has a fitness program. Everybody does some level of player evaluations. All academies set out, short, medium, long-term goals. There's always been this.
No, they don't.
Well, true. At least they should. They should. And the communication aspect had always been there, where there's not been a way for people to communicate except for texting and group messaging and such. So, as we were kind of whiteboarding the app, we just laid out everything, that I had experienced as a parent, what I had seen on the court on court tournament side, on the practice courts. I had spent a lot of time at TBRM, and I've worked with them on their technology platforms as well. So I had a little bit of insight into. I was very involved in the meetings, coaches meetings and such. So I outside of just being a tennis parent, I had some insights into how an academy was being run, how are coaches looking at, what are they using, what are the gaps. So I was lucky in that sense, where being at T-Bar and helping them with their technology implementations in the back office and such, I was privy to some of that information as well. So it was really helpful for me to understand it from a coach's perspective. Of course, I knew it from my perspective as a parent of what I wanted to see, what I was using, the tools that I was using before Tennis Locker to help my child, help my son better. His progress. So, and then of course, as a player, I did want my son's input in terms of what would be cool, for you to be motivated and such. So I mean, we've incorporated some of the feedback from and then we did work with a number of different coaches across the country and kind of gave them a high level understanding of what Tennis Locker was going to be, and then took that input as well. And we're still we're a year into it. We've done I think there's only a couple of more features that that are requested, like video analysis and customized fitness testing and such, that we're building right now. Outside of that, I think we have 16 high-level features that exist in the app. So I think we've been very lucky to have the ability to share and get insights from coaches or top coaches around the country of what they're looking for, what the gaps that they see, and of course parents as well, myself and other parents that we had talked to. So yeah, it was a collaborative effort into getting the insights from three different perspectives.
How'd you come up with the name?
The name was very interesting. Locker, it was always the idea was that, in a locker, when you open a locker, you've got everything in there, right? Anything and everything is in your locker. There was a couple of different names that we were looking at in the beginning, but the idea with this whole idea is like when you open up tennis locker, you have everything from a player's profile, their evaluations, their fitness testing, their practice matches, their tournament results, their goals, their player calendar, the files that they've been shared with, the video analysis, their player, so everything is in that locker for them to explore, to take one. So that was kind of like the idea, to have everything in a single place, and also wanted to put an athletic kind of a spin on this as well. So that was kind of like the idea. And then when we looked at the overall branding of what the app would be and how we could brand Locker, we looked at different logos that we were designing and such. So that seemed to work the best for and it's kind of caught on.
It's a great name. It's perfect.
It's kind of caught on. The logo it kind of speaks to what we're trying to do, and making the change in the player development and world. So yeah, it's been awesome.
Yeah, that's great. So one of the things that's a big concern now, is security and privacy, especially when it comes to kids.
Sure.
So talk to that.
Sure, absolutely. So we're using the same back office platform. We're using Microsoft Azure, which is a back office platform that the Department of Defense uses. So we feel fairly good about we don't house any personally identifiable information, except for date of birth, which is actually required for us to know for COPA laws, which is Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. So we are COPA compliant. We actually launched a couple of months late to make sure that we were COPA compliant. So just to give you an instance, like we do not communicate with under 13 players. We do not have even access to under 13 players' email addresses. That is a consent is required by the parent of an under 13 player within the app if they consent to using the app for their under 13 child, and then if they decide to, they have the authority to give access to their under 13 player to the app. So we, when a new academy signs on and they want to enter, the players, when they enter the players, and if it's under 13, then an email goes out to the parent. They get their username and password. As soon as they log into the app, the first thing that the app asks them is, in order for the coach at this academy to use your son in tennis locker or your daughter in tennis locker, we need your consent. So they have to provide explicit consent for the academy to use their child within tennis locker, and then after that, they have the option to give their under 13 child access to the app.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk practical now.
Sure.
So, my kids' academy has tennis locker. I've given my consent for my child to be part of it. What am I seeing do I download the app from the App Store?
Sure.
How does it all
absolutely.
work?
So yeah, as soon as an academy signs up, they add a player. As part of adding a player, they'll ask the parent information as well. So you get an email from Tennis Locker via the academy with a username and password and a link to download the app. You download it from the App Store. It's available on iPhone as well as Android. And you download
tablets as well.
The tablet, you can use the app on the tablet. It's not optimized for tablet because we optimize the coach's app for the tablet just because of the screen real estate that's available for the coaches to be able to work with multiple kids.
I love all this lingo. See, every time I talk to you tech people, I learn something new. Real estate.
Yeah, the screen real estate. Yeah,
real estate.
So we did that. So what happens is as a parent, you get the username and password. You download the app, you log in, you accept the terms and conditions, you provide the consent, and then you are now waiting for the academy to start using the app for your son or daughter. So as soon as they, let's say, take attendance or they give an evaluation, you get a push notification that your son or daughter was evaluated. This is their score for the day, and then within a week's worth of time, as the academy is using the app, you'll start seeing evaluations, the fitness test results, practice matches, the events that are happening at the academy, push notifications that they're using to communicate with you for any reason, right? The academy will send out a push notification to let's say practice has been canceled because of rain, or don't forget to sign up for this tournament, or anything and everything that they want to communicate with the parents. They can do that with literally a tap of a button. They don't have to remember phone numbers or email addresses anymore. So within a week, you would start seeing all of your child's evaluations, fitness testing, practice matches, goals, tournament results, if they play tournament, analytics around it. And within about 2 weeks, you'll start seeing dynamic real-time graphs that you can use for comparative purposes. You can see patterns, you can see their development, and we do multiple different metrics on their evaluation. So they're evaluated on their effort, their competitiveness, their attitude, and a number of different metrics, right? So you can see one specific metric if you wanted to. You can see the average of how they're progressing. So when the next time when you pick up your kid from practice and you ask them how was practice, and they say it was great, you can see on the app that it may not have been great, because the coaches have the option to also comment in terms of how the practice was and what they can work on better. So you have now access to, without being on the court, without being that helicopter parent that is on the court all the time, you now have access to everything that's happening during the practice hours outside of just this tournament stuff. So yeah, within a couple of weeks you start seeing results, and the average time right now that we have of parents spending parents and players spending in the app is about 4 minutes and 21 seconds, which is fairly high from an industry perspective. Okay. The average is
per day?
On average, yes.
Okay.
They'll spend about 4 days. We send out push notifications to alert them of their rankings. If they go up and down in rankings, we alert them of the push notifications of their new match results that are there. So yeah, the parents love the idea of the happiest of our audience is the parents.
I'm sure.
That
I'm telling you, we've been begging for this stuff.
Yeah,
right?
it's the kids definitely use this to see if who they lost to, and they can see their practice match results now. That did I beat you I beat you a couple of months ago. This was my score, and they love the competitiveness side, and a friendly, healthy competition and encouragement. You see the leaderboards, you see the encouragement there. And from a parent's perspective, they just love the fact that I have something to see in terms of the ROI of what's going on with my child. And you could have multiple children within the program, and you can switch profiles. So we've made it fairly easy for parents to be able to do that. We just launched we are just going international at the end of September. Emilio Sanchez's academy and some of the other academies that host a lot of international players, we just heard from their parents as they're coming on board that we had to make the app available in certain countries because of the population of the players' parents being there. They loved the idea of that they're miles and miles away from their kids who are boarding at these academies, and they have daily or weekly or monthly insight into what's going on in their players, in their kids' world. So just a couple of days ago, we got an email from a mom in Australia saying that, hey, my son boards at this academy, and they've invited us to join Tennis Locker, and I can't tell you how awesome this is for us to be able to see this progress, which is not anecdotal, which is not coming in an email format. This is actively that we can see, and it depends on how you use that information, right? I mean, as a parent, you need to be careful in terms of if there's. You don't want to be a helicopter parent off the court, right? In the sense where we're actually seeing a lot of understanding. Parents we're actually now going to start hosting webinars for parents as well. I was just getting ready to ask you. In terms of how best to use this information that you now have access to, how best to use it in a positive way, in a constructive way, in a way that you can actually use it to bond with your child and their journey through tennis.
And not aggravate the coach,
exactly,
right?
And
not make the coach regret that they've done this.
Right, and the coaches are excited about it because they don't have to field phone calls every night after practice, with parents and stuff. They can just see everything, themselves. Right. So it's been great so far.
So we have a lot of coaches that tune into the podcast too. So assuming that some of them are tuning into this one, talk about how they use the app, like the practical application of it for them.
Sure.
You talked about the tapping. So
I mean, the first thing you do when you get into the app, once your players are loaded, you're taking attendance. We don't, force you to do evaluations weekly or daily or, however, whatever your program is today and how you want to adapt it, you can customize your program in that sense, how you work with the app. So some of our academies religiously use the app every single day to provide evaluations, or every day the kids are there. Some academies are using it to where they would do evaluations once a week. They run fitness tests twice a week. Once a week they'll have practice matches. So it really depends on how the coaches take the app on the court for the first minutes as the kids are coming in. They're double tapping to mark the kids present as they're walking around. Some academies have this floater concept where a coach is floating around different courts and evaluating players as they're seeing them in action, in practice, and making notes. You can see, you can schedule all of your practice matches on all the courts, so you know exactly who's playing where. The coaches will take a group of kids to a particular court and they'll do group fitness testing, like plank to failures and such. So it's not that you're on the app 100% of the time by any means. You're just there for that moment that you need to capture something. So we did an exercise at TBRM of running a 10-yard dash with 20 kids on 4 courts. It was 5 kids on each court with one coach, and it took, I believe, if I remember correctly, it was 5.5 minutes to run the entire 10-yard dash for 20 kids on 4 courts. And they did a mile. They did a plank to failure test as well, and that was a group test. And that took about 8.5 minutes. That was the highest plank that somebody
That's
did.
Impressive.
It was it was pretty good. And that was the plank that they did. It was 8.5 minutes, and that's how long it took to do that. So and it's not mandated to use it every day. You use it based on what your schedule is. So maybe today, you just take attendance and you do fitness tests today. Tomorrow you're just doing evaluations once a week. Thursday you're doing practice matches, so everybody's using it for practice match purposes. When you're off court as a coach, you have the ability to set up goals for your players. So if you're lounging, waiting for your practice matches, waiting for your practice to start at 4:30, you can set up goals. You can assign goals to your players, and they get a notification. The parents get a notification that a goal was just assigned to your player, and this is how many days they have to achieve this goal, and they have a weekly reminder. And all of it is, on their phones, right? Mm-hmm. That's where, unfortunately, we spend a lot of our times, on that. So we made it, it's totally mobile. There is no desktop or web version of this at all. So that's the practicality of it. I mean, it's like you take it to a tournament, you can see the head-to-head results. So let's say if your player is about to, as a coach, your player is about to go and play this particular kid, you can look up your history with that particular player, and talk about last match that you played with him, what you remember from it, the notes that you took from it, so you can access that information. So they're using it for academies on the administration side are using it for understanding the facility analytics. We have an entire group. We have probably about 20 graphs that are real time that are only there for facility administration purposes, for you to be able to see as a facility administrator what's going on in your academy. How many kids are using a particular brand of racket? How many kids are coming to practice every day? Which days are the most busy and the lowest? You can staff accordingly based off of that. You can see who's using what kind of shoes, so you have leverage when you're talking to your reps, your product reps and such. You have leverage, you have an understanding of what's being used at the academy. So not only from that perspective, we've also made it to where we work off of 3 pillars: modernizing operations, data-driven player development, and insightful analytics. And part of that modernizing operations pillar is not just the aspect of coaching, but also the modernizing of the operations off court, which is for the administrators and the facility owners and directors and such, to be able to see a very high level overview of what's going on in their junior academy.
So if you have a coach that's maybe just coaching a handful of kids,
Sure.
there's not a big academy setting, maybe
Sure.
they're renting
Sure.
public courts or whatever.
Absolutely.
Is this an appropriate app for them?
Absolutely. One of our biggest number of coaches are using it for under 20, less than 25 players. We have our subscription model basically works on how many number of players you have. So a lot of our coaches are who don't have an academy setting are using it for running those practices, because they are a one-man show or a two-man show, as you said, renting park courts and such, and now they have the ability to offer this technology to their players and parents, and also not have to worry about keeping up with Google Sheets or writing stuff down on paper. They can do all of it in Tennis Locker, and they can subscribe to a plan which is for up to 25 players.
Okay.
So we have a number of coaches that are doing just that they run their own programs, and they'll use Tennis Locker to basically manage their entire program that way.
Is there a voice feature?
Voice feature in the sense
So,
of,
can the coach
dictate notes?
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. So 99% of the app is where you are only tapping, and you have 1% where if you want to take notes, you don't even have to type it. You can dictate notes in there. So you can write paragraphs of feedback.
I wish y'all could see my face right now. I'm so blown away by this.
Yeah, it's a lot of coaches use that because they're on the court, and we actually get to see how who's using and how they're not who as in particulars, but aggregate level information in terms of what's the most popular feature of the app, what's if they're using dictation and such. So yeah, dictation is used a lot because when they're on court, they're walking around, they're waiting,
Right.
and then they dictate notes into the app, and that's it. On average, we've timed it with thousands of evaluations that we've done in our testing. On average, it takes less than 10 seconds to evaluate a player.
Wow.
And we have a traffic light system on 4 metrics, from red to green, a level of 1 to 5, and then you have the option to add notes. You're not required to, but you do have the option to do that. So,
one of the things that got talked about a lot at the WTCA conference was the whole issue around cell phones and
Sure.
cell phone usage on court,
Sure.
and not just with the players, but also with the coaches. And,
Sure.
when the kids are picking up balls, the coaches are on their phones, returning texts or whatever.
Sure.
And it's become a problem.
Sure.
From both sides, from
Sure.
the parent, from the player side and the coach side. So before parents start, emailing me
Right.
about this, I don't want my coach to have one
Right,
more
right.
excuse to have
Sure.
to pick up a phone.
right.
Address that for me.
Sure, absolutely. So this was definitely a concern when we first started it. This came up that it may look as in the coaches are spending time,
They're disengaged,
They're disengaged.
right? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. They're disengaged with the audience. But as parents, as we've educated and as we've grown in the last year, we've actually had, believe it or not, parents asking academies for Tennis Locker to be implemented at their academies because of the engagement that they get from Tennis Locker. They would rather see the coaches being engaged in limited amounts of technology, using it towards their kids' betterment or their practices betterment in terms of the engagement aspect of it. So yes, there was definitely a concern in the beginning from directors in terms of, hey, this looks like, we're enabling more technology use on the court. But as I mentioned earlier, it's an in and out, kind of thing. We don't want you to be on the app specifically on the court. You absolutely can do some insane amount of analytics, real-time analytics, when you are sitting at lunch, or you're sitting with a player, you're sitting with a parent, when you're having those meetings where you didn't have anything but anecdotal data at that time. That's when we would want you to be engaged with the app and use it extremely. But when you're on court, you're just in and out, taking attendance, double tap, 10 seconds to do an evaluation for a player. Video usage is definitely there today. There's a lot of stroke video, stroke analysis, and usually it's like 10 seconds, 15 seconds of service. So that's definitely been something that they've been excited about. But most of the app, in terms of the courtside usage of the app, is just primarily very limited. But the engagement, what it yields in terms of engagement for parents, they've really accepted the usage, of it. So we had that concern, but as we've in the last year, it's actually been where we've had parents at tournaments. Because other parents have access to apps, and parents talk, of course, and they see, and word of mouth. We've actually had clubs adopt Tennis Locker because of recommendations from parents.
Awesome. So that's good.
Yeah, that was great.
So what's coming?
What's coming? Yeah, absolutely. So international launches at the end of September. We are going into markets in Europe, in South America, in China, in South Africa. There's been a lot of interest from Australia and New Zealand. We actually have, believe it or not, we were supposed to launch in summer, but we are working on the European GDPR laws that were just passed, so we shifted our release to be in the fall. So we're going in those markets. We actually have academies signed up, ready to come on board as soon as we launch internationally. We actually met with Kim Kleister's academy earlier today, and they're super excited about it. And I'm very certain that we will go. That they will come on board. We met with their director of tennis, and a couple of other coaches who were here from the academy. So they loved it, so that's one thing. International is coming. One of the biggest things that's coming that wasn't there. So as I mentioned early on, when we first started using the app, the iPhone 7 Plus and the 6 Pluses were just starting to come on board as we were in the design phases. So we didn't know that the bigger screens are here to stay, because Apple and some of the other firms were experimenting with these new things. So we designed the Coaches app to be on the iPad only. For the screen real estate that it produced, that it provided. What we have gotten a lot of feedback from, as specifically as we go into international, is the affordability of iPads in the international markets for coaches is not as it's not as prevalent of usage for international, right? So we are launching at the end of September the entire Coaches app that we developed for the iPad. We're launching it for iPhone and Android. So now academies don't have to make the investment of procuring iPads for their coaches, even though they love the idea, because outside of just Tennis Locker, iPads have a lot for coaches, especially when they're traveling and such. Sure. So it's a really good investment for their coaches. But that's coming international, and the rewritten app for the iPhone and Android. A video analysis is another feature that we're working on. So I'm sure you're familiar with Dartfish, and you're familiar with Coach's Eye and some of the other apps that are there, and we're going to stand on their shoulders and actually launch our own video analysis platform within Tennis Locker. So you don't, as a coach, you don't have to exit the app at all, and then instead of doing integrations and such, we're actually building our own one. So if you do a video for a kid, you can categorize the video as a forehand or shot category video, and then as soon as you save it, the parent gets a notification saying that, hey, Coach John just uploaded a forehand video for Abrar. Take a look at it. So that's one of the engagement aspects of it. A couple other things that are coming up that are light is enhancements of our attendance feature to include session-based attendance. We're bringing in custom fitness testing. That's been a request that has come up quite a bit. And then we're also doing post-match analysis, which is one of the coolest things, which is a metrics a system grading scale on 8 different metrics that the coaches can provide. So if your coach is there with a group of kids and they only get to see 15 minutes or 20 minutes of a particular player, they can quickly grade them on 8 different metrics. And then the player also has the ability to grade themselves. And then you can see both of those grades on how a coach graded them and how a player rated themselves on one screen in terms of a graph and chart to see how they rate themselves from 1 to 5. And the idea is, of course, there will be a huge disparity in the beginning of how a coach rates a match and how a kid sees themselves. And the idea is that over time, as they get to, as the kids get to better, understand their strengths and weaknesses, that, it'll bring the gap, a lot closer
right.
between the coaches. So so that's all that's coming in the next
it's
few
exciting.
months. Yeah,
it's very exciting. All right, what didn't I ask you?
I think we covered everything. I'm really I'm really thankful for you to taking the time to do this. Inviting us on your platform. I feel that there is a huge gap that exists, and what you've done with ParentingAces fills that gap for a lot of parents in terms of how to navigate the junior tennis world. And we're all very appreciative of your efforts on what you're doing. We support your vision, your mission in terms of what you're trying to achieve and what you're trying to give back to the community of tennis, and would love to speak to you in the future in terms of ways to probably work together and such. So
it'd be awesome.
It's exciting.
It is
awesome.
Exciting, and I'm excited to see where Tennis Locker goes, and
thank you.
The things that y'all add to it. I mean, to my listeners, you guys need to look at this. Is there a
website? Yeah, sure. TennisLockerApp.com.
Okay.
Just go to TennisLockerApp.com, and we have some really funny, cool explainer videos to kind of explain to you what Tennis Locker does. A very extensive site for academies and coaches and parents and players. We actually have sections for parents, sections for players, sections for directors and coaches to be able to understand the app from their perspective. TennisLockerApp.com. You can follow us on Facebook. We post a whole bunch of stuff on Facebook, and follow us on Twitter as well.
Y'all are starting to get a lot more prolific on social media.
We are. We are, as we grow, we have hired and have brought on team members who are helping us manage that, and me moving. Just focusing again on kind of like the roadmap and the vision of the company. Being in a CEO spot of a startup, you have to wear 1,000 different hats, and it's been an extremely awesome journey. But we're excited to expand in a way where we can, actually bring on team members to help us with specific tasks, so that we can, better serve our customers.
So the company's growing too.
The company's growing too. Yes, we actually have a good team now. We have Doug Kruger, who's our director of sales, Nikki Slater, who's our customer success manager. We have a marketing team now. We have a content development team. We have a team of IT professionals, developers. We have solution architects. So we have a team has grown. We've been very lucky. We've actually had private investors who've actually have expressed interest and actually have invested in the company and see the value of it. So the the future so far looks bright, and
That's
we're
awesome.
excited. Yeah,
That's fantastic. Well, thanks for chatting with me.
Thank you.
I know you're exhausted.
No, thank
You've
you.
been telling the story for the last 2.5, 3 days, however long you've been here. And to my listeners, I want y'all to make sure you check the show notes, because there'll be links to everything that we've discussed. And if you think your child's coach could benefit from having Tennis Locker, we will put Furqan's contact info, if that's all right.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
To reach out to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, cool. So they can reach out and get you to send the info.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Lisa. Appreciate
Thank you.
it. Thank you very much.
To my listeners, thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time on Parenting Aces. I'm Lisa Stone, and you've been listening to the Parenting Aces podcast, for tennis parents by a tennis parent. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe to us and write a review on iTunes. For more information on navigating the junior and college tennis journey, please visit us online at ParentingAces.com. Thanks for tuning in and sharing us with your tennis community.